IBM conducts a global CEO survey every single year. And at the top of the list is this criteria for innovation. Now, the reason is that every year the CEO has to figure out how to pull a new rabbit out of the hat with the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous conditions that we're faced with. And the pandemic simply took something that was a chronic challenge and fear every CEO had and made it acute. But let's look back even further. In the 1980s, Shell Oil was looking at that precipice point, and they wanted to find out during these unstable times what companies comparable size did differently than anybody else that survived over centuries. And they only found 41 companies. Here are the common attributes. And I pulled out a book I wrote in 2004, which was a futurist book looking at the volatility coming out of the dot-com crash and bubble and what the future of organizations were going to be. Well, I think these lessons still apply. So first, all of the companies were externally integrated into the social and economic context of the time. They weren't these abstract brands. They were connected and part of the social fabric. Second, each one had a cohesive identity that gave it the ability to withstand the traumas of shifting circumstances. So that cohesive identity wasn't its brand, it was its culture. Third, they were risk takers. They understood how to take the kind of risks that allowed them to adapt. What we're seeing is so many companies now are retrenching, getting conservative, putting constraints on their employees. We hear companies like IBM, Goldman Sachs, and Chase demanding people come back to the office because the businesses are challenged. I talked to another company that was expecting people to come back, and I said, so what's in it for the people if they do come back? I think they had the objectives reversed. They knew the business was challenged because people's interaction wasn't there, but people have gotten used to a different rhythm, a different way of life, less stress. In fact, so much so that heart attacks dropped by 40% from over 800,000 to a little over 650,000 from 2019 to 2020. That drop in heart attacks is directly related to work. Continuing on the risk-taking, these companies were particularly tolerant to activities on the margin, outliers, experiments, the eccentricities within the boundaries of a cohesive firm, which kept stretching their understanding of possibilities. So many companies I've worked with find these outliers irritants to the organization, and they get weeded out. But those are the positive signals of what the future can and should look like. They need to be protected, not simply tolerated. And finally, they all enjoyed financial stability. They were financially conservative and maintained the kind of cash reserves that gave them flexibility and independence of action. So the ability to maneuver in hard times, if you're leveraged to the hilt and things go down, then you've got no place to go. And all you can do is cut to the bone. Now, we've seen artificial stimulus from the federal government to the tune of about $8 trillion, but that is going to work through the system quickly. Well, we're going to start seeing more and more of that cascade. We're going to see buildings and developers and urban centers struggle to find the value proposition of why people should come back in to a physical work environment. Those are 4 key traits of organizations that have survived for centuries. I think a 5th criteria for going forward is that organizations that really nurture and protect employee mental well-being, brain health, a culture that is safe, a culture that supports differences in people. So anyway, I'm going to continue to go back to some of these resources that I worked on a lot during the 2000 disruption and all the upheaval we saw with Y2K and the dot-com crash and changes. I think there's more to glean and more lessons to learn, so stay tuned and let me know if this is of interest to you. If it is of interest, click below and let me know. Take care.